Mom spots sign on teacher's car. Then cops look in her trunk. She was well aware that she was in quite a bit of trouble. She could tell by the way the police officer looked at her. His body language said it all, the clenched fists and the tone of his voice. She pleaded that there was nothing inside her car that would interest him, but he thought otherwise. A crowd now gathered around them, eavesdropping on what they were saying. Soon everyone would discover something about their favorite teacher. Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos. Millie Glenn was a single parent who worked tirelessly to provide for her twins, Sean and Molly. It was difficult to provide for the 8-year-olds and work full-time, but Millie felt that they were worth it. But Millie was glad that she wasn't by herself. She had her twins' teacher, Miss Smith. She was always trying her best to help out and was a stellar teacher. But Millie didn't know about something she was hiding. Miss Smith was a devoted teacher that impressed all the parents with how good she was with their kids. Millie could see that it was a genuine pleasure for Miss Smith to be teaching her kids. But she could never have imagined what was truly going on behind closed doors. She had something to hide, and they'd soon find out. The school was almost on summer break and everyone was excited, both students and teachers alike. Millie had to drop off her kids before she went to work. She saw the smiles on her children's faces as they hopped along to the gate. They were growing up so fast. Millie got to work thinking that it was going to be an ordinary day just like any other. But that wasn't going to happen. While at work, Millie would often think about what her children would be doing at that moment, probably learning something important that would come in handy in their path of education. She was never worried about what hands she'd left them in, but she couldn't have known what she would soon find out about her favorite teacher. Soon everything would be all out in the open. What the twins were actually learning while Millie was at work was the tutors. What was different about Miss Smith and her attitude, she must have been the most caring teacher at the school. Miss Smith was loved by all. The staff, kids, and parents loved her. So when her secret came out, everyone was extremely surprised with what the cop uncovered when he asked to look in her trunk. After working hard for the day, Millie rushed back to school to pick up her children. She took the highway to get there on time. She couldn't wait to see their beaming smiles. But when she finally arrived back at the school, she saw something that made her blood run cold. There had to be a mistake, right? Millie noticed that Miss Smith's car had a note on it. She was sure that the car was hers, but what was written on it? Millie got outside of her vehicle and walked towards the car. When she read it, she knew what she had to do. She took out her phone and with shaky hands called 911. While this was happening, Miss Smith was wrapping up her classes for the day. She made herself coffee and sat back at her desk, a smile on her face. Then she heard a knock on her door. "Miss Smith, are you there?" a coworker said. Before she could even utter a word, the door swung open as her coworker rushed into the room. Something wasn't right. The coworker told her that there was a police officer just behind her in the hallway. Miss Smith felt a lump form in her throat almost instantly. What was wrong? She ran out to meet the officer, but was met with even more concern as she noticed that her boyfriend was standing next to the officer. What had happened, and why was Lewis involved? With a lump in her throat, Miss Smith asked her boyfriend Lewis what was wrong, but he just looked at the floor, avoiding all eye contact with the worried teacher. "Hi, Miss Smith," the police officer said, his tone authoritative. "I'm Officer Jones." Miss Smith looked at the officer with fear in her eyes. She had no idea that in just 15 minutes her entire world would be turned upside down. Officer Jones asked Miss Smith if she had her car keys, which stumped Miss Smith even more. She retrieved them from her designer handbag and dangled them in front of the officer. "Good, now follow me into the parking lot," Officer Jones commanded Miss Smith. The two went out into the front of her car, her boyfriend keeping his distance. She didn't understand. Was her license expired? While out in the parking lot, Officer Jones told Miss Smith his police dog had sensed something strange near her car, which meant he had to check her trunk. Nothing made sense to Miss Smith anymore, but in a few minutes everything would fall into place, and Miss Smith would learn the truth surrounding her car and the police officer. Miss Smith felt that she was going to get a ticket, or worse. She could see it in the officer's piercing eyes, his wide, imposing stance, and his authoritative tone. But she just couldn't understand what she had done wrong. There was nothing more in the car than just a few empty water bottles and a fluffy blanket, right? Miss Smith gave the police officer permission to unlock the car and take a look inside. Within a matter of seconds, she watched the officer step inside her car and she prepared for the worst. But she had no idea what was about to happen next. Miss Smith didn't know what to expect as she watched the police officer look around her in their trunk. With every move the officer made, Miss Smith's heartbeat skipped a beat. Then suddenly her boyfriend Lewis looked at Miss Smith with his bright blue eyes and pulled her in close. This brought some relief and comfort to the worried teacher. She so badly wanted him to save her from whatever trouble was ahead, but this was going to be far from easy. Miss Smith could feel tears well up in her eyes and an uneasy feeling in the pit of her stomach as she proclaimed her innocence to her boyfriend. But then suddenly the officer who was looking through Miss Smith's trunk let out a gasp and he stumbled back. What had he found? Just as Miss Smith was about to race over to her trunk to see what was inside, suddenly her boyfriend pulled her back. "What's wrong?" she asked, turning to face him. She saw fear in his eyes and she felt a shiver up her spine. What her boyfriend was about to do was going to change her life forever. Miss Smith saw the officer pull something out of the trunk, saying, "That's what I thought." She couldn't see what it was, but the next thing that happened made her fear the worst. "You're going to do life for this," said the officer, as he made Lewis drop to his knees and put his hands behind his back. Then he handcuffed him. Miss Smith's worry was mounting by the second. The officer then asked her to stand in front of Lewis as he went back to the patrol car to get his evidence camera. Reluctantly, she complied, and then her world was turned upside down. Miss Smith darted from her boyfriend to the officer and back. She then watched as Lewis pulled his hands from behind his back and placed them in front of her, holding a ring. She gasped and brought her hands to her face. The officer, who was filming everything, started laughing. This had all been a ruse. Miss Smith's boyfriend got down on one knee and asked the question that all women long to be asked. "My love, will you marry me?" he asked, while his Hollywood smile sparkled in the light. He pulled out a beautiful ring and tears of happiness streamed down Miss Smith's face. "Yes," she screamed. She hugged her boyfriend, now fiancé, but Miss Smith was confused. Was there even anything in her trunk? While the newly engaged couple hugged and embraced each other, Officer Jones and Millie, who had been a part of this incredible plan all along, clapped for the happy couple. But Millie knew she had to tell Miss Smith the truth. She pulled her aside and revealed everything. You see, when Millie arrived at school earlier in the day, she saw a note on Miss Smith's car that stopped her cold. It put things totally in perspective. It made such an impact that she called up Smith's boyfriend and told him of her plan. But what did this note say exactly? The note said, "Love and live every day like it's your last." And it was a motto Millie lived by. She knew that Miss Smith and her boyfriend were meant to be. They just needed a bit of pushing, that's all. Once Miss Smith's boyfriend agreed to propose, Millie then asked a friend on the force to join in on this elaborate plan. And it was safe to say the plan sure worked. Please share this with your friends and family.